The diamond necklace slipped through Eleanor's fingers and clattered onto the glass countertop as the sales associate's words pierced the air. "Madam, perhaps you'd be more comfortable browsing our budget collection." Silence fell across the luxury jewelry store. Every eye turned to witness her humiliation. Eleanor Wright, dressed in her gardening clothes and rain-splattered boots, felt her cheeks burn with a fire that rivaled the rubies gleaming in the display case before her. "I was actually interested in the Azure collection," Eleanor said softly, referring to the store's multi-million-dollar exclusive line. The sales associate exchanged knowing glances with her colleague. "The Azure collection starts at $300,000. She replied with a smirk that conveyed everything words couldn't. "Perhaps another establishment would better suit your circumstances." Eleanor's hands trembled as she clutched her worn canvas bag. The same bag that held her platinum credit card with no spending limit. The same bag carried by the wife of James Wright, tech billionaire and one of the 20 wealthiest people on the planet. But they didn't see Eleanor Wright, philanthropist and art collector. They saw a disheveled woman in muddy boots who clearly didn't belong among the glittering displays and marble floors. "I understand," Eleanor whispered, dignity crumbling under the weight of 20 pairs of judging eyes. For the first time in years, she felt invisible, worthless, stripped of her identity by people who measured human value in designer labels and perfect manicures. As Eleanor pushed through the heavy glass doors of Chatsworth Jewelers, the cool afternoon air did nothing to soothe the burning humiliation scorching her chest. Her car, a modest electric sedan she drove herself despite her husband's insistence on chauffeurs, waited in the parking lot. Once inside, she pressed her forehead against the steering wheel and allowed herself exactly 1 minute of tears. No more. The drive home to their cliffside estate took 30 minutes. 30 minutes of internal war. Part of her wanted revenge, craved it with an intensity that surprised her. She could make one call and have the store closed by morning. She could ensure the smirking sales associate never worked in luxury retail again. The right name carried that kind of power, a power Eleanor had always been careful never to abuse. "They deserve it," whispered the wounded part of her, the part still smarting from being dismissed as worthless based on appearance alone. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. "How did the shopping go? Found something for the children's hospital gala." Eleanor's fingers hovered over the screen. She could tell him everything. James would be furious. His protective instincts would kick in immediately. The last time someone had insulted his wife at a charity function, the man had lost his board position within a week. Not through any direct action from James, but simply because nobody wanted to risk the displeasure of a man whose investments could make or break companies overnight. But was that really who Eleanor wanted to be? Someone who destroyed livelihoods over wounded pride? "Still looking," she texted back. As she pulled into their private drive, Eleanor caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her face was blotchy from crying. Her hair wind-tousled from gardening that morning at the community project she'd founded. She had been planting sunflowers with children from the local shelter when her assistant reminded her about needing jewelry for the gala. She'd gone straight to the store without thinking about her appearance. "What does it matter what I look like?" she had thought. "I'm just buying something." Now, sitting in her car worth more than what most people earned in years, surrounded by a property valued at 8 figures, Eleanor felt a strange sense of clarity emerging from the humiliation. Inside their home, James was on a video call in his office. He waved at her through the glass wall, his face lighting up the way it always did when he saw her, even after 15 years of marriage. Eleanor smiled back, then headed to their bedroom suite, where she slipped out of her muddy clothes and into the shower. As the hot water cascaded over her, the vengeful thoughts returned. She could call the owner of Chatsworth directly. She'd met him at multiple charity functions. She could ensure the story reached the society columns. Billionaire's wife discriminated against at elite jewelry store. The PR disaster would be immediate. But then what? A tearful apology from the staff? People fired? A jewelry store with a permanently tarnished reputation? Eleanor turned off the water and wrapped herself in a plush towel. On the marble counter lay her wedding ring, a surprisingly modest diamond that she'd insisted on when James proposed. Back when he was just a promising startup founder, not the tech titan he'd become. Next to it sat the bracelet he'd given her when they sold their first company. A simple platinum band inscribed with, "To the woman who believed when no one else would." These pieces meant something. They had stories. They had soul. By the time James finished his call, Eleanor had made her decision. She sat in their library, laptop open, a notepad filled with handwritten notes beside her. "Tough day?" James asked, kissing the top of her head. "Illuminating," Eleanor replied. "I need to make some calls about tomorrow, and I'll need Richards and the security team." James raised an eyebrow but asked no questions. Their relationship had always been built on trust. That night, Eleanor slept fitfully, rehearsing what she would say, how she would act. This wasn't about revenge, she reminded herself. This was about dignity, not just hers but everyone's. Morning arrived with crystal clarity. Eleanor dressed with deliberate care. A simple black pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup. No designer labels visible, no flashy accessories. Just Eleanor as herself. Richards, their head of security, waited for her in the foyer with 2 other team members. Behind them stood James, who simply said, "Whatever you're doing, I trust you. Just call if you need me." The drive back to Chatsworth Jewelers felt like marching into battle. Eleanor used the time to center herself, to remember that the goal wasn't humiliation but education. "We'll wait outside unless you signal," Richards reminded her as they pulled up to the store. "Are you sure you don't want one of us to accompany you inside?" "I'm sure," Eleanor said, her voice steady now. "This is something I need to do myself." The same bell chimed as she pushed open the door. The same pristine displays gleamed under carefully positioned lighting. The same sales associate who had dismissed her yesterday looked up, a practiced smile freezing on her face as recognition dawned. "Good morning," Eleanor said, her voice carrying across the hushed showroom. "I believe we met yesterday. I was inquiring about the Azure collection." The woman, her name tag read Vivian, paled slightly. "Yes, of course. I apologize if there was any misunderstanding." Eleanor approached the counter, aware that every employee in the store was watching the exchange. "No misunderstanding. You made yourself perfectly clear. You judged me based on my appearance and found me unworthy of your time or respect." Vivian's manager materialized beside her, his face a mask of professional concern. "Is there a problem, madam?" "Yesterday, there was," Eleanor replied calmly. "Today, I'm hoping there won't be. My name is Eleanor Wright. Yesterday, I came here directly from a community garden project to look at your Azure collection for the Children's Hospital benefit. Instead of service, I received prejudice." The manager's face drained of color at the mention of her name. "Mrs. Wright, please accept our most sincere apologies. We would be honored to show you anything." Eleanor raised her hand, silencing him mid-sentence. "I'm not here for apologies or special treatment. I'm here to complete my original purchase and to make something very clear." Eleanor's words hung in the air, commanding attention from every corner of the showroom. The manager's expression had transformed from professional concern to barely concealed panic. Behind him, Vivian stood rigid, her perfectly manicured hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Perhaps we could speak in our private viewing room," the manager suggested, gesturing toward a doorway draped in luxurious velvet. "No," Eleanor replied, her voice calm but unyielding. "What I have to say should be heard by everyone." She glanced around the store. 2 other customers had paused their browsing, sensing the tension. Several staff members had abandoned any pretense of work, watching the unfolding scene with undisguised curiosity. "Yesterday, I was judged by my appearance. My gardening clothes, my messy hair, my lack of visible wealth markers. Today, I'd like to show you something." Eleanor reached into her purse and withdrew her phone. With a few taps, she pulled up a photo and turned the screen toward the manager and Vivian. "This is Lily," she said. "She's 8 years old and fighting stage 4 neuroblastoma at Children's Memorial. 3 months ago, during a particularly difficult round of chemotherapy, she told her mother that she dreamed of stars. Not the ones in the sky, but stars that she could hold in her hand when the treatments became too painful. Eleanor swiped to another photo. A child with a pale, thin face but eyes that somehow still sparkled with life. This is Marcus. He's 10 and waiting for his second heart transplant. He collects blue things because he says they remind him of the ocean, which he's never seen in person but hopes to visit someday. She put her phone away and looked directly at Vivian. I came here yesterday to purchase pieces from your Azure collection, specifically the celestial necklace and the oceanic bracelet, because they match the dreams of children who may not live to see another birthday. Children who have never worn anything more valuable than plastic hospital bracelets. The silence in the store had become absolute. Even the soft background music seemed to have faded away. I didn't come dressed in designer clothes or driven in a luxury car because those things don't matter to me. They never have. What matters is that somewhere in this city, there are children fighting for their lives who find joy in small things. In stars they can hold and oceans they can wear on their wrists. Eleanor took a breath, steeling herself for what came next. With a subtle nod toward the window, she signaled to Richards. Within moments, the door opened and her security team entered, followed by a woman in a doctor's coat and 2 children in wheelchairs. Lily and Marcus, from the photos. The effect was immediate and electric. The manager's mouth fell open. Vivian took an involuntary step backward, colliding with the display case behind her. Dr. Chun asked if it might be possible for Lily and Marcus to see the pieces before the gala. Eleanor explained, her voice softening. To touch the stars and oceans that will be auctioned to fund the new pediatric oncology wing that bears their names. Dr. Chun wheeled the children forward, their small faces lighting up as they approached the gleaming display cases. Lily's head was wrapped in a colorful scarf, her frail body swimming in a hospital gown decorated with hand-drawn stars. Marcus clutched a small blue teddy bear, his fingers traced with 4 bruises. Would it be possible? Eleanor asked, her gaze still locked with Vivian's. For these children to see the pieces that represent their dreams? There was a moment, brief but undeniable, when something shifted in Vivian's expression. The polished veneer of professional detachment cracked, revealing something raw and human underneath. Without waiting for her manager's direction, she moved toward the secure display where the Azure collection was kept. Of course, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I would be honored. What followed was nothing short of transformative. Vivian, with trembling hands, brought out the celestial necklace. A cascade of diamonds and rare blue sapphires arranged to mimic a meteor shower. Kneeling beside Lily's wheelchair, she held it up so the child could touch it. It's full of stars, Lily whispered, her small fingers hovering over the sparkling gems. Real stars I can hold. Next came the oceanic bracelet from Marcus. A masterpiece of aquamarines and diamonds set in white gold, designed to capture the movement of waves. It looks exactly like I imagined the ocean, Marcus said, his voice weak but filled with wonder. It's even better than my dreams. The store had become utterly silent except for the children's delighted whispers. Staff members and customers alike stood transfixed, many openly wiping away tears. The manager seemed incapable of speech, watching as his most valuable pieces were being gently handled by children in hospital gowns. Eleanor watched it all unfold, her heart full. This wasn't about humiliation or revenge. It was about revelation, about pulling back the curtain on what truly mattered. When the children had finished examining the jewelry, Eleanor approached the counter. I'd like to purchase both pieces now, as well as the matching earrings, she said, her voice businesslike once more. They'll be auctioned at the gala next week. The opening bids start at twice their retail value. The manager, still visibly shaken, nodded repeatedly. Of course, Mrs. Wright. It would be our privilege. In fact, Chatsworth Jewelers would like to donate an additional piece to your auction. Perhaps the lunar pendant? It complements the celestial necklace beautifully. Eleanor nodded her acceptance, and as the paperwork was being prepared, she found Vivian standing beside her. Mrs. Wright, Vivian began, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't have words to express my shame or my regret. What I did yesterday was unforgivable. Eleanor studied the woman's face. The perfect makeup now streaked with tears, the carefully composed expression now open and vulnerable. "It's not unforgivable," Eleanor replied gently. "We all make judgments based on appearances. The difference is in whether we learn from our mistakes." Vivian nodded, glancing over at the children who were now being shown other pieces by attentive staff members. "I've learned more today than in all my years working here." As the transaction was completed and the jewelry secured in elegant boxes, Eleanor prepared to leave with the children and Dr. Chun. The entire staff of Chatsworth Jewelers lined up near the door, a spontaneous guard of honor for the departing children. Vivian stepped forward one last time. "Mrs. Wright, I've worked here for 7 years, selling beautiful things to beautiful people. But I've never understood until today what beauty truly is. Thank you for showing me." Eleanor smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since entering the store. "Perhaps you'd like to volunteer at the children's ward sometime? They have a program where people read stories to the patients. Many of them don't have regular visitors." "I'd like that very much," Vivian replied, her voice steadier now. As they exited the store, Richards held the door open. The sunlight caught the tears still glistening on Vivian's cheeks, transforming them momentarily into diamonds more precious than any in the display cases. Outside, as the children were carefully helped back into the medical transport van, Eleanor felt a profound sense of peace. She had come seeking neither vengeance nor vindication but had found something far more valuable: the opportunity to reveal true worth in a place that had forgotten how to recognize it. Dr. Chun approached her as the van doors closed. "You know, Eleanor, we could have brought the jewelry to the hospital for them to see. You didn't need to bring them here." Eleanor watched as Chatsworth staff stood in the doorway, still watching the departing van. "Yes," she said quietly. "I did."